That's the one thing about our audience. They always want a new guy to break through the glass ceiling.
All you have to do is just be real.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am the jabroni beating, pie eating, trailblazing, eyebrow raising, talking is done, you're out of your class, no sleep till Brooklyn, The Rock whips your ass. Woo!
I wish you and King would quit talking.
All right, here we go. So maybe this one's a charm. Hey, welcome to Around the Ring, episode 10. My name is Dave. I'm your host. Today is Sunday, February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. I hope you all had a good one out there, and hopefully you're not too snowed in wherever you happen to be living. This week we're going to discuss the NXT TakeOver Rival Special that aired last Wednesday on the WWE Network. We're also going to discuss why I think NXT is absolutely the best promotion, best thing in pro wrestling today, and also the sad state of affairs at the WWE main roster, because really it is kind of sad. It's so sad, in fact, that I really didn't bother watching this week. I started watching Raw at one point, and I was like, yeah, no, I got other stuff to do. And to be fair, my folks were in town this week. It's been real busy around here at the Dave Brown household. Not that anyone cares, but it's been busy, and I just haven't had a chance to keep up. And besides, as much as I love me some pro wrestling, there are some other things on TV that I enjoy watching, like The Flash and Arrow and Gotham. And I'm a little bit behind on those, so I had to do some catching up and watch some of my other shows. But I wasn't going to miss NXT TakeOver Rival, because holy crap, was it going to be good. The expectations were high, because the last special NXT TakeOver Our Evolution was incredible, was overall the best event of 2014. And I just couldn't wait to see how they were going to follow it up. And it was overall, we'll talk about my overall impressions. It was a great show. It didn't quite have the emotional highs and lows that Our Evolution had, but so much of that was built around Sami Zayn arriving and winning the NXT Championship from Adrian Neville, finally getting there. And this event was much more about rivalry. I think the name was perfect, because you have the rivalry of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. You had the Bull Dempsey Baron Corbin rivalry, and then you have Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Charlotte rivalry. And then you had a couple other matches that really built into this for being a solid card. And so we'll start at the bottom and go through and give you my impressions on what we got to see, what we had the pleasure of seeing. The announced team this time around was I know Albert was there, and I know Corey Graves was there, but I can't remember the other dude, little guy with little glasses. But the three of them, they were great together. I would have liked Tom Phillips to be there because I like him. But overall, the announcing was fantastic. I mean, who would have thunk it? Good announcing on a wrestling program. Lord knows we don't get that in the main roster. But the show opened up with Hideo Itami's music hitting, and it was a match between Hideo Itami and Tyler Breeze. This was something that was set up at last week's episode, or the previous week's episode of NXT, which after the event there was a segment that was put online on the WWE YouTube channel that had Tyler Breeze attacking Itami for losing his match to Finn Balor, and Breeze basically losing it because he wanted to be in the tournament and go on to beat Finn and then face Adrian Neville or whoever. I kind of figured maybe they were going to hold this off and do a slower burn on this, but maybe this will just be the first match that we're going to get in this potential feud, because this match was great, and they would be it would behoove them, I should say, to put these two guys in the ring again and again and again. Tyler Breeze is a hell of a talent, and one thing that he does really well, he in a lot of ways he's like a Tyson Kidd or like a Cesaro or a Dolph Ziggler. He makes every single person he gets in the ring with look good, and that is a talent. And he is also just outstanding. It was a great match. The crowd was into it. They cheered for both guys. They really, though, were behind Hideo. And we had another GTS tease. I can't wait for the day when he actually hits that move. That place is going to erupt, because as soon as Itami picked up Tyler Breeze onto his shoulders into the fireman carry position, the place went berserk. And man, it's just gonna be awesome when he finally hits that move. Great, lots of back and forth. Tyler got a couple of really good near falls, controlled a decent part of the match, hit a great supermodel kick at one point, and nearly got the win. But it finally did end with Itami getting the win, hitting his basically what is essentially a variation of the flying knee. It's a flying kick to the face, and if you watch the way he executes it, it's essentially the flying knee. And he can't use the flying knee, which was one of his moves, because Daniel Bryan uses it. And he keeps teasing the GTS, and I think he will be able to use the GTS at some point because CM Punk is no longer in the company. But we got clean win for Hideo Itami. Crowd loved it. Really good match. Next up, we have Bull Dempsey versus Baron Corbin. Bull's music hit. He came out. And, I really hated Bull Dempsey at first. And I think, and as much as I hate to admit it, maybe it was some of an aesthetic thing, because the guy looks like a damn slob. And, if I put on a singlet like that, I would look disgusting. And the poor dude just doesn't look good in it. He needs different tights desperately. Kevin Owens isn't dressing like that. He comes out and he's a badass. So let's get Bull Dempsey some different tights, a different outfit, and I think people would be able to take him a little bit more seriously, as sad as that sounds. But this was a good match. These guys went back and forth. There were a couple of botched moments. There was at one point when Corbin would clothesline Dempsey, or was supposed to clothesline Dempsey over the top rope, and they were both supposed to spill out, and something got hung up. Corbin's momentum sent him over, but Dempsey didn't go over, and then he kind of eventually had to kind of fall over. It was a bit weak. And then at the very end, the end of days that Corbin hit was a bit weak, and it almost looked like Dempsey was doing more of the work on it. But it worked. It was a good match. It was really good to see Corbin in a match that went longer than 45 seconds. And it shows the potential this guy has, because not only does he look great and have an amazing presence about him, he can go. He needs more seasoning, that's for sure, and NXT is the best place for him to do that, because he's going to be able to get to work with guys like Adrian Neville, and eventually I could see him working matches with Hideo Itami and Finn Balor, and even more matches with Bull Dempsey, which I don't think there's going to be much of a point to that. But I wouldn't mind seeing him and Colin Cassidy have a match. I think that could be a hell of a lot of fun. Two huge guys. Man, but can you imagine, though, who would Full Sail cheer? I mean, Full Sail's the best wrestling crowd out there, and I could just see them going nuts for both guys. That would be a lot of fun. But Corbin did a really good job, got the win, and we then went on to the NXT Tag Team title match. Lucha Dragons challenging champions Blake and Murphy, which they have dropped their first names and go now just by Blake and Murphy. It's really interesting. Blake and Murphy were pretty much kind of a scab team. Were kind of a joke at first. And then they got this win over the Vaudevillains, and they've been pushed really well. They got a great win over the Lucha Dragons, and they had another really good match with the Lucha Dragons here. The thing with the Lucha Dragons, though, Kalisto is incredible. That man flies around. He's a hell of a talent. But he is kind of held down by Sin Cara, because Sin Cara has no energy. He still works really well in the ring, but when they do the Lucha chant thing, Sin Cara just looks sad doing it. And, in a way, I think they really do need to bring the Lucha Dragons as a tag team to the main roster, if for no other reason because the tag team roster right now up on Raw and SmackDown is so pitiful. We've got an amazing team in the Usos. We've got a phenomenal up-and-coming team in Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. You've got the Ascension, and if they're still employed, which I'm not sure they are, but you've got the Matadors, who are basically just jobbers. And that's honestly it. And they can put together other teams here and there, but you essentially have a tag team division of 5 teams. So bring up the Lucha Dragons, let them go in there and have some feuds with these guys. It could be good stuff. Hell, I'd almost be ready to say send up the Vaudevillains as well. Those guys are good. I don't know if their gimmick would get over with the main roster. And that's... Okay, let me rephrase that. I don't know if their gimmick would get over with Vince McMahon. And I think he would de-push them or just make them look like idiots. Kind of like he's done with guys like Adam Rose and Bo Dallas, who were just hugely over in NXT, come to the main roster and get treated like jokes. But this match was good. Some decent power moves. Blake and Murphy are still pretty damn green, but they have a good intensity. They look great. They did a couple of really cool spots. They did this move which looked like a form of a suplex, the kind that you do over the shoulder, and then it turned into a jumping neck breaker. That was pretty sweet. And then the final was a brainbuster followed by a frog splash. That was just awesome. Looked great. So if that ends up being their finisher, then that's fantastic. That would be a good finisher. I think the crowd would get over it. Because the frog splash brings back great memories of guys like Eddie Guerrero and Rob Van Dam. So frog splashes are always awesome. So Blake and Murphy retained. Good match. We then came to the final 3 matches. We had Finn Balor versus Adrian Neville in the finale for the number 1 contenders tournament. This match was spectacular. It was just everything you could want out of a wrestling match. Okay, so right now NXT has this group of guys that were the most well-respected guys in independent pro wrestling for so long. And they're in NXT. They're all together. It's like this who's who of the indies. So you get Finn Balor versus Adrian Neville, or as they were known in previous incarnations, Prince Devitt against Pac. It's going to be great. Hell, that was a match that Triple H saw that made him decide, hey, I got to sign both of these guys, and they delivered, and it was phenomenal. And it ended with the double foot stop off the top rope. And another wicked drop kick, which shoved Neville into the corner turnbuckles, slamming in the back of his head against the middle turnbuckle. And then we got the double stomp off the top, or the coup de grace, as it's called, which the crowds are starting to get into. I still think he needs a better finishing move. And I was actually looking on Wikipedia trying to see what his finishing moves were before. And it looks like he's got a really good array of stuff. So at some point, hopefully they'll let him bring out one of those other ones. But the match was just outstanding. The crowd was really into it. They were cheering both guys. At the end, they shook hands as Adrian Neville walked off the crowd chanting, "Thank you, Neville." And I think some people were getting you kind of got the vibe that, okay, this was Adrian Neville's last stand in NXT before heading up to the main roster, which I want, and this comes down to what a lot of people are saying. A lot of the folks, other podcasts are saying this like crazy. It's like, on the one hand, people want these guys to go to the main roster because it's more money, it's more success, so on and so forth. But the main roster has a track record of screwing great talent up and not using them right. And I could see a guy like Adrian Neville with his ears, just Vince McMahon shitting all over him, and it would be a crime because he is one of the most what's the way that I think Kevin Castle said, that the amount of precision that this guy has. He's one of the most precise athletes the WWE has ever had, and to make him some kind of foolish gimmick would be a waste. So this guy needs to be treated with respect, and so from that standpoint, I just want him to stay in NXT. I just want him to stay there, and I want Triple H to grow NXT into its own separate entity. And that's actually something we're going to get into, because I got a couple of stories about the situation with the main locker room and NXT and all that, and one about NXT going on the road. We'll get to that in a second, because we still have 2 matches to talk about. The next up was the Fatal 4-Way for the NXT Women's Championship. We had Bayley versus Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks versus Charlotte. And this match was outstanding. It was so freaking good. It's one of the best Fatal 4-Way matches I've ever seen. It was easily the best women's match I've ever seen. And these girls are great. And this wrestling is just as good as anything you're going to see out of the dudes. And it was emotional. It was all over the place. There was a spot where Sasha Banks and Bayley were out on the floor, and Becky Lynch and Bayley were out on the floor, and Sasha Banks does this crazy dive, and then all 3 of them were out on the floor, and Charlotte just throws herself over the top rope, and lands on all of them, and it was just amazing. And it was a very emotional, great ending. So it ends with Bayley and Becky Lynch are on the outside somewhere. Sasha Banks has Charlotte in the bank statement move, which does look pretty damn painful. And then she turns it into a crucifix roll up and gets the pin. And it was clean. It was in the center of the ring. And she just sits there for a minute, looks stunned, and celebrates and gets her bitchy attitude. And the great part is Charlotte just sits there in the ring for a while. And eventually gets up, walks up to Sasha, holds out her hand. And, these two were former friends. And Sasha just looks at her hand and eventually walks toward her. They hug. And then they kind of push each other with this whole kind of bitchy attitude, friendly pushes. But it was awesome. You see, Sasha was filled with emotion. Her Charlotte's eyes were turning red, like she was about to, burst into tears, which apparently is a Flair genetic, because her dad would cry at the drop of a hat. Not that I'm not criticizing. I can't say anything. I cry like a faucet. So, just really good ending. I would have loved for Bayley to have gotten the win, but honestly, any of those girls could have gotten it. And Sasha Banks, she really is next in line. Bayley's going to get the title at some point. Becky Lynch is going to get the title at some point. It was a top-notch, fantastic match. Lots of fun. And I can't wait to see what happens next. I'm sure there will be a rematch for Charlotte before she heads off to the main roster and gets sucked into the mess that is the Divas division. here's the hope that she can get there, and her and Paige can maybe turn things around for the Divas division. But I don't know. Again, Vinnie Mac is running the show, and God only knows what he's going to do to them. Then we have our main event for the NXT title. We have Sami Zayn defending against Kevin Owens. They replayed that excellent promo package about the two that had these great pictures from when they were young and interview clips. And there's just one great part where Kevin Owens, because it comes down at one point, Sami Zayn said everything was great until Kevin Owens got married and started having kids. And Kevin Owens says Sami Zayn only cares, and he stops. I was like, no, he only has himself to worry about or to take care of. And those aren't the exact words, but essentially he was starting to say Sami Zayn only cares about himself, stopped himself and said, no, that's not it. He just doesn't have to worry about anyone else. He doesn't have a family. And the whole time, he's saying, look, he said, I was very happy for Sami for his win. I'm still happy that he won, but this is business. And if I need to be successful for my family, then the championship is the way to go. And then we get to the match, and the match is brutal. Kevin Owens is a beast in that ring and plays the heel so beautifully. And it was a good back and forth, but really Owens dominated the match. And just at the end, the match finally ended with him just hitting powerbomb after powerbomb after powerbomb. And at one point, the doctors came out, one of which was the famed Z-Pack giving refusing to cut off a staph infection off of CM Punk. So that guy made it out. I can't remember what his name is, but hopefully Sammy didn't have a staph infection, because that guy won't deal with it. But they came out, and Sammy was glazed over, just looked like he'd been just effed up. And then Owens grabs him again, hits like 2 more power bombs, and the doctors are saying no, it was just stop. And he goes for a second or a third. I can't remember if it's a second or a third, but goes for one more power bomb, and the ref grabs Owens, pushes him away, stops the match, awards Owens the match and the title. And Kevin Owens is just ecstatic. He's jumping around, and the show ends with him essentially standing over Sami Zayn, holding up the belt. And the crowd was pissed that he won, but they're definitely behind Kevin Owens. Tons of Kevin Owens shirts, lots of fight Owens fight chants, even kill Owens kill. And Sami Zayn will always be the most beloved wrestler at Full Sail University in NXT. You can't help but love him. He is NXT's Daniel Bryan, but almost even more lovable than Daniel Bryan. And the NXT crowd is always going to support him, but they also recognize talent. That's what I love about that crowd. That crowd is such a smart crowd, and it doesn't matter if someone's supposed to be a heel or a face, they cheer them. If they see a great performance, they cheer. And they cheered for Tyler Breeze in his match against Hideo Itami. They cheered for Sasha Banks when she won, and they cheered or vocally yelled at Kevin Owens because he's such an amazing performer. And that was it. 2 of the best hours of wrestling you will see. I think overall, like I mentioned before, I don't think it was quite as good as the Our Evolution special, but it was just barely not as good. This is the 5th NXT special that they've done, and all of them have been just top-notch, incredible shows. And it just proves once again that what Triple H and company are doing down there in Florida is amazing. Which, takes us to why I think NXT is the best promotion in wrestling today. You watch NXT and the crowd is rabid, and you also get that with Lucha Underground, and you get to some extent with Ring of Honor. These are smart crowds. These are rabid crowds. These are crowds that love wrestling. And you really don't get that with TNA as much, because I think TNA is such a damaged product at this point. But with Ring of Honor, with Lucha Underground, and especially with NXT, you're seeing something special. And NXT has come in. They have phenomenal talent, great stories that make sense, that express emotion, and great wrestling. But beyond that, they know they're a wrestling show, and they treat the audience with respect. And they make it seem real. Like this is a real sporting event that has real consequences. People really fighting, beating the utter piss out of each other for wins and losses and championships, and all that stuff matters. And that's great. That's what those of us who really enjoy wrestling, I think, really, really love. And we're going to get to, there's a part of an editorial I'm going to read here in just a second, but this kind of brings us to a few different stories that I found today. One of which is about NXT going on tour. And the title, this was from the Up Rocks website, NXT's leaving Florida and going on tour as the brand civil war looms. The feud between WWE and its own developmental system is about to get worse. If you've been following the mounting hostilities between WWE's main roster and NXT, from rumors that NXT had given main roster performers an inferiority complex, to Vince McMahon's thinking NXT's overrated and planning increasingly humiliating gimmicks for its top stars, you'll find this announcement interesting. NXT is leaving Florida, gasp, and touring up north for the first time as a promotion. And here's the actual announcement. NXT Live, TakeOver Ohio for the first time on March 5th. Tickets for NXT Columbus go on sale January 23rd at 10 a.m. at the Lifestyle Communities Pavilion box office and at Ticketmaster outlets. NXT regularly holds house shows in similar cities around Florida and ran dark matches at WWE events, but this is the first time they've taken the show on the road as an act on its own outside of the region. Is this a test run for WrestleMania weekend, for a WrestleMania weekend live special in California? It'll be fun to see if NXT's hype and great word of mouth can sell out full sale sized shows across the country and create buzz. I'm so happy to see Sasha Banks make the poster, and yeah, there's a poster that has Sasha, Charlotte, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, and Hideo Itami. So happy to see Sasha Banks make the poster alongside Charlotte and the leaders of the new school. If you're in the Ohio area, go to the show. I might try to go to the show. I live in Texas, support the Yellow Ropes. And if I could make it up to Ohio to see that, I definitely would. And yeah, if you're in Ohio, anywhere near where this is going to happen, definitely go to it if you can, because I've heard reports that the show's actually sold out, which is fantastic. And I think it would be something really, really good if NXT could go on the road, hit full sale sized event centers, and maybe even tape some stuff while they're out and about. That would be really good, because I think they're going to bring something that audiences really, really want, which is just damn good wrestling. So this does, in a way, it doesn't bode well for the main roster, but the interesting things I found out of this are, the fact that Vince McMahon apparently thinks that NXT is overrated. That is shocking to me, but it shouldn't really be. Which brings us to another editorial, And this one I'm not going to read all of because it's pretty long. But there was the folks who wrote it tweeted about it. I retweeted that. So yeah, hit me up on Twitter at Around the Ring OK, and you can find it on there. And it is from the Work of Wrestling. It's workofwrestling.com. It's the Work of Wrestling podcast, and the title is "What is Best for the Future of WWE's NXT." And I'm not going to read all of it, like I said, because it's pretty long. But this is a decent little bit that I think has some really, really good points. So hopefully I won't screw this up too much. NXT is loosely defined as the WWE's farm league, a homegrown developmental territory of sorts, broadcasting at a Full Sail University in Florida. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m., pre-taped 1-hour episodes play on the WWE Network, and every 2 months, the promotion has a live 2-hour special. It is, without question, the best product the WWE currently creates. Agreed. It is, without question, one of the primary reasons to be a subscriber. I also agree with that. NXT represents the purely positive, entertaining, hopeful pro wrestling future that WWE fans have desperately craved since the expiration of the Attitude Era. Aimlessness has defined a generation of WWE fans and a generation of the WWE product. WWE fans have had to watch, despite a wide assortment of glaring issues that have plagued Raw and SmackDown for the better part of 14 years, and the company has struggled to create an assortment of top stars and transcendent performers since the days of The Rock and Steve Austin. Viewership has plummeted, in part due to the changing landscape of entertainment consumption, and in part due to the company's inability to embrace modern times. The company has struggled and continues to struggle to redefine itself and create a consistently captivating flagship program. But in NXT, where the fiction is grounded in traditional professional wrestling stories, where the focus is on creating the illusion of a legitimate sports competition, the company finds the exact direction it naturally wants to take. The fans who have been desperate for consistency and quality find their pro wrestling respite. NXT is intimate, honest pro wrestling theater every week. The sincerity and the heart on display is palpable. Many of the performers are already seasoned indie wrestling veterans, but their youthful enthusiasm overrides all cynicism. They perform with unparalleled passion, and the narrative surrounding their various gimmicks protects them, anchoring them to a blend of fantasy and reality that engenders each character with a sense of meaning, purpose, and power. This is all designed for the more, quote, hardcore audience, the idea being that traditional pro wrestling fans want to watch NXT while the supposed casual majority wants to watch Raw. This is a fallacy resultant from corporate rationalizations. Fans who don't see NXT are actively not watching NXT because they like the nonsense on Raw. Fans who don't watch NXT aren't alienated by good storytelling that makes sense and well-booked, protected talent. This supposed casual majority watches Raw because they don't want to pay for the network. That's all. The idea that people who watch NXT are a different audience, a more hardcore fan, is misguided and born out of our culture's need to segregate fandoms and make excuses for bad ratings. The only thing that separates a fan who watches NXT from a fan who watches Raw is a disposable income and a willingness to subscribe. There is nothing to suggest that Raw fans wouldn't love exactly what NXT has to offer. People who watch Raw don't watch NXT simply People who watch Raw and don't watch NXT simply don't know about NXT because the WWE doesn't promote NXT, or Raw viewers have been misinformed, or Raw viewers haven't been adequately convinced to buy in, or Raw viewers are convinced NXT produces bad gimmicks. Oh, okay. I'm still going, still got a little bit more. That sentence was a mouthful. Yikes. But I digress, and back into the story. Where Raw seems to actively dismantle talent, defaulting any and all save one or two sports entertainers to an unenviable position in mid-card limbo, NXT treats everyone as a potential draw. NXT plays to each talent's strength and places performers on the card appropriately. Not everyone is a main event player, but almost everyone, at the very least, gets some time to shine. The result is an hour's broadcast that takes you through an array of emotional highs and lows, ranging from the outlandishly comedic to the hyper-realistic. Even though all is well in NXT, all is not well for NXT pro wrestlers who graduate to the main stage. While some pro wrestlers have found success making the transition from NXT to Raw, and several who came out of NXT's precursor, FCW, others like Bo Dallas, Adam Rose, Big E, Xavier Woods, The Ascension, Emma, and even Paige have been mismanaged since their debuts or completely taken off television. An atmosphere of toxicity surrounds Raw, a sense that the roster has been beaten into submission by an irrational overlord who regards almost every talent save a chosen few, John Cena, Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, etc., as expendable, odd, and unworthy of any respectable representation. There seems to be a stigma against NXT stars in particular, a different kind of uphill battle for them that other members of the roster don't necessarily face. This creates an unavoidable catch-22 for up-and-coming talent. The piece does go on. It's really worth reading, despite some sentences that are a little long and sometimes easy to get lost in. But this guy makes some great points. I would nitpick that I think there is a bit of a difference between the casual fan and the more hardcore wrestling fan. And I say that because I have a friend who is a casual fan, and the way he looks at the product is really, really different from the way I look at the product. And some of that is we just have different tastes, but some of that is he really is just a casual viewer. Now, that having been said, I have convinced him to watch NXT, and he has enjoyed it a lot more than he likes Raw or SmackDown. So here's the thing. Casual fans will enjoy NXT. Casual fans will enjoy pure wrestling when they're given the chance. The WWE has this idea that basically you have to dumb down the product for the casual fans. And that is a huge misnomer. And it creates a bad product. In a lot of ways, it's like you could kind of compare it to comic book movies. There was a long time when Hollywood and producers thought that you had to dumb down, essentially, comic book films so that mass audiences would appreciate them. You couldn't just present the material as the source material because, comic books are for nerds and not everyone will get it. Well, not really. You look at flops like Batman and Robin, or both the Joel Schumacher Batman films, which are atrocious. You look at things that Green Lantern, for example, which is a movie that I don't even hate. I kind of enjoy, but is one that did not give its due reverence to the source material, and because of that, audiences turned away. You compare those to The Avengers, a movie that absolutely pays great homage and respect to the source material. One of the most successful movies ever made. if you make something good, people will come. And that's the same thing with wrestling. If you produce great wrestling shows, whether they are straight up wrestling or whether they are more sports entertainment, people will watch it. People aren't watching the main product right now because it sucks. It's not good. And yes, there are highlights. There are people on that roster that are fantastic. Daniel Bryan, Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, Seth Rollins. These folks are fantastic. Paige. These people are fun to watch. They're amazing in the ring. Luke Harper even. But they're almost the minority. And, and I hate to lump Roman Reigns in with the problem because I don't think he's part of the problem. And to some extent, I don't blame guys like John Cena or Randy Orton or Kane as being the problem. They're just there doing their jobs. The maniac at the top pulling the strings is completely clueless. And at this point, he has no idea what people want. And he's been that way for a long time. Look at how silly the WWE product was for so long. Look, they got a guy like back in the late 80s, early 90s when the WWE signed Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes came off a hell of a feud with Ric Flair in the NWA. And it culminated in an epic battle at Starrcade where he won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Eventually they went back and forth, but he was a respected man, charismatic as hell, and was a huge star. He goes to WWE, they give him a gimmick of a plumber and put polka-dotted tights on him, and they make him into a joke. And the son of a bitch is so good, he got over anyway. But that's the problem. Here, take another example. Ron Simmons. Now, people think of Ron Simmons now, and you think of, damn! And you think of the APA and that. But when he first came in as Farouk, he was dressed like a freaking extra from a bad Gladiator movie. Or he looked like a contestant on that show, American Gladiators. It was fucking awful. And it was embarrassing. This was the first black world champion in professional wrestling history. He was a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And he gets treated like that. Well, he had the stigma of coming from the other places. He came from WCW. He came from the South. Vince didn't seem to have as much of a stigma against guys that came from the AWA. And I don't know if that's a northern thing, him being from Connecticut and just looking down on the South, which maybe has something to do with it. But I kind of see him now having the same bad attitude toward these people that come from NXT. And I don't know if it's the fact that they're in the South. I don't know if it's the fact that NXT is a straight up wrestling program. And he also did this with guys from WCW to some extent, because WCW, when it was done right, was a straight up wrestling program. And I'm talking the pre-Vince Russo garbage and that crap at the end that was unwatchable. I'm talking the good years of WCW. That was just straight up wrestling. And Vince McMahon has never gotten that. He's always had these ideas or these delusions of being something other than professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and all that crap. So I do think there is a difference in these audiences, but you bring great wrestling to those audiences, to that mainstream audience, they will love it. Just like you bring the mainstream audience a great comic book movie, they will love it. They're not going to turn around and go buy the comics, but they will go to the Avengers. They're not going to buy, Avengers comics, but they will go see it. They're not going to buy the Guardians of the Galaxy comic books, but they will turn out in droves for a movie based on those comics when done well. And that's what the WWE needs to do. They need to remember what they are and just do it. Which brings us to kind of our final story, which is the sad state in the WWE main roster. And this is one from the Inquisitor, and it's pretty short. I'm just going to read the whole thing. A headline: WWE locker room morale extremely low. What is causing the problem? The WWE locker room doesn't seem to be feeling great these days. No chiz. It appears that some envy NXT's locker room far more because they seem to be having more fun than the main roster has on a weekly basis. This despite the main roster having millions of people tune into them each week. The Wrestling Observer reported that the locker room morale is very low right now. The talent is unenthusiastic with both the booking and promos being presented. While fans have not buried the show by any more than usual, this is the time of year that the WWE is at its best. Television is supposed to be far better during WrestleMania build-up season. Yet, this time around, that is not the case. Ain't that the truth? It is said that the locker room knows things are bad. How could they not? That's me interjecting there. But it's the system that makes it all happen. Therefore, disgruntled talent doesn't seem to matter much when corporate and creative want to go a certain direction. Over the last number of months, there have been several backstage meetings. John Cena even held a talent-only meeting to hopefully build up a spark. WWE is in panic mode, according to some. They are trying to stack this Monday's WWE Raw broadcast as best as possible with past legends to hopefully bring in more names. This is why Dusty Rhodes is set for the show already, and more is to come. However, many think if the writing was better, the shows would be far better. Exactly. After seeing NXT Revival last night, the subtlety of what went down there shows that anything can be done to make the format of Raw and SmackDown better. Last night, Sami Zayn did a springboard moonsault onto Kevin Owens to the outside, where he somehow whiplashes and hits his head. At home, you could consider this an accident on Sami's part. However, it was to lure you into the ending of the match. It was a small thing, a minute on the surface, yet executed to perfection. It led to not only an amazing ending, but the perfect one for the match presented. Yet creative and writing staffs on the main roster can't seem to come up with something like this or better. NXT has shown how easy it is to do things. How easy it is to do things, and due to the love NXT is getting, it has made some main roster talent jealous in the past. This time, once again, it could do so. Now the main roster has to try to outshine the guys and girls in developmental. Morale is so low that we may not see anything major happen until WrestleMania matches are set up. Even then, will we get a WWE product worthy of the views it once achieved each and every week? Time will tell. With each passing show, WWE has made mistake after mistake. Meanwhile, there are changes that could be made. Why do you think Triple H as well as the WWE have gone to the internet to get fan opinion so often? Why is there a major opening in WWE creative right now? It's because at the end of the day, WWE needs help. They know it, and so do WWE fans. Yeah, the WWE needs help. They need somebody in creative. They need somebody in creative who is a wrestling fan. Not necessarily a wrestler themselves. They need someone with reverence to the business, reverence to the art, and what wrestling is. It's just like when, again, to use the comic book movie analogy, You don't necessarily need someone directing or producing the movie who has made comic books, but you need someone there who has a reverence and a respect for the source material. That is what WWE needs right now. WWE needs someone who is a wrestler. Well, let me rephrase. Need a wrestling fan. Someone who loves professional wrestling and can bring this once mighty product back to where it was. Because at the rate it's going, WWE could go out of business. And on the one hand, that could be great for promotions like Ring of Honor and Lucha Libre or Lucha Underground and AAA down in Mexico and New Japan Pro Wrestling in Japan. Hell, even TNA could probably profit from it a little bit. Well, no, they couldn't. They're hopeless. But without the major leagues, without the WWE, so much of this industry falls apart. And, that's definitely not a good thing, but it's just the way things are right now. So we need the WWE to succeed. And as fans, we want them to succeed, or I do. I want them to succeed because, one, I want all of these people to be employed and be able to make a great living doing what they love. Two, I want a product that I can sit back and enjoy, something to take away from all the BS of the real world and all the hubbubaloo and crap in the news. Ain't nobody got time for that. I want to watch me some pro wrestling. And yeah, I'm a Southern boy. I am from the South, born and raised, and I love good wrestling. I love the WCW. I love the UWF. I loved those types of shows. I love WCCW, and I love NXT. And if the WWE main roster can bring these elements from NXT in, you will have a boom. That boom that Jeff Jarrett spoke of a year ago that he thinks is coming, WWE could do it. They've got better talent right now, wrestling-wise, than they've ever had. And the fact that they can't figure out a way to make that work is, well, criminal, honestly. But you could make the main roster more like NXT, bring in those elements, and audiences will come. And really, it is those hardcore fans you need to please. Because it's the hardcore fans who will turn around and tell their casual friends who are casual fans, hey, are you watching what's going on? Because this shit just got great. You need to tune in. Just like I do with my friends who aren't watching NXT and I tell them about it. People would do with the main roster if it was good. So here's to hoping. And, at some point I will, I'm going to put together a more comprehensive list of people who I would bring in if I was going to either start a new organization or if I was going to take over NXT, or not NXT, but take over WWE. Who would I bring in from all the different territories, but all the different organizations around the world? That is something I'm still going to do. I mentioned it, a couple weeks ago, and I want to do a more thorough list. So maybe we'll do that next week. We'll just see what happens. So, hey, that's pretty much it for this week. Around the Ring, episode 10 is heading into the can. Going to get some editing done on this bad boy, and then it'll be up for everyone's listening pleasure. Thank you, as always, for listening. We really appreciate it. Check us out at aroundtheringok.wordpress.com. You can also head over to thesparkradionetwork.com/aroundtheringok. You can check us out there because Around the Ring is a proud member of the Spark Radio Network and K98Talk.com families. That's where you can find the show and lots of other great internet talk radio digs. So check that out if you have time. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/aroundtheringok, or actually you're going to like us there, and follow us on Twitter at aroundtheringok. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, I would love to hear from folks. Send emails to aroundtheringok@gmail.com. You see, I try to stay consistent with that username tag handle thing. Pretty much the same thing everywhere. And I'd love to hear from you. So please shoot me an email, questions, comments, tell me how much I suck. It's all welcomed. And that's it for this week. I hope everyone has a great week. We will be back here, all goes well, knock on wood, next Sunday. So, yeah, take care, everybody. Stay safe out there. And as the great Jerry Springer used to say, take care of yourselves and each other.
You've been listening to Around the Ring on the Spark Radio Network.
All you have to do is change your point of view. And bow me.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
That sucks more than anything that I've ever sucked before.
What? It's for charity.